What's going on, everybody? My name is Graffiti, and yes, you read the title right. Today I'm going to show you guys how to use the player counter device. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is the player counter device? Well, I'm going to show you guys today in this tutorial. Now, this whole setup might look a little bit confusing and a little bit over the top, but I assure you it is all for the tutorial, so do not be alarmed at all. So, the player counter device. Now there are a few settings in here that are very useful and some that are a little confusing. So I'm going to show you guys how to use them and a few ways to use them. Firstly, we have the compare player count. Now, this is probably the most useful thing that we're going to use today. Do not compare is one of them. Fewer than, equal, or fewer than. Not equal to, and equal or more, and then more than. Now what this basically is comparing how many players are either in a zone or in your island, and this is what it is comparing it to. So as you can see, is it going to be equal to the amount of players? So this here is the target player count. Is it going to be equal to that amount of players? Is it going to be equal or more than, equal or less than, not equal to, or are we not going to compare? So that brings us to compare on game start. Usually I want to have this set to no, but that's basically, comparing it at the game start. You can have that set on or off depending on how you want to use it. Compare on count change. You can have it set to during game, yes and no. Obviously, for this tutorial, I'm going to have it set to yes, because that is going to be the most useful thing to do for it. Transmit on player counted removed. Every time, once per player, and signal only. Now, once per player is it will activate once. Something will activate every time a player either joins the map or joins a zone, leaves the island, leaves a zone. Every time something happens, and then signal only, so it's only triggering off the signal. Transmit for on compare result change. Last instigator. Since I am the only player in this map, I'm gonna have this set to last instigator. But basically, since I am the only player in this map, I could also have this set for all. Now, if you want to use a map for multiple people, this would be the setting you want to have it set to. Otherwise, you're going to have it set to the last person that joined the map or the last person who activated the settings that you are using. Counted team, any and all the teams that you want to use. Invert team selection. This is not going to be used today in today's tutorial. Counted class. This is self-explanatory because there are teams and there are classes. Now you can use them for the same purpose, but I'm going to stick with teams because it's a little bit more out in the open, if you will. Enable on game phase. This is default for always. Now for this tutorial, since I'm going to be activating it at certain times, I'm going to have this set to none. Now, always, it will always be activated, it will always be in use, meaning anybody who joins the map, something will happen with them every single time, whether they like it or not, without anything really being activated for it. None. You would have to activate it or enable this device in order for it to work. Now that's what I'm going to have it set to today. Include spectators. Self-explanatory is just including the spectators. Info panel visible. This is so that if the info panel is visible during the game, so I'm gonna have that set to on. Icon scale, self-explanatory, changes the size of the icon if you want it visible or not. Info panel icon, you can change this depending on how you want. There's a kill enemy icon, and then base color. This is what it will be when it is not completed. So as you can see, the completion is 2 players, but since there's only 1 player, it is red. But if I were to have 2 players in this map, it would change to blue. Use zone. There are 2 settings. There's in zone and there's on island. Now on island, self-explanatory, is on your whole island, and in zone is in a specific zone. Now you can change this however you want. It's gonna mostly stay box, or you can have it set to cylinder. It doesn't really matter. But you can change the size of it as much as you want, and offset is kind of like how much you want it to be off-centered from this little device here. So if you were to have this offset percentage to 100, it would move it over 100%. And yeah, obviously for this tutorial, I'm gonna have this set to just 0%. So that way it's centered on this device. And then we come to the most complicated part, what the channels do. Now, considering the fact that I have the enable on phase, I would have it set to none. You would have to have the setting enable activated. Now there's, you guys know these 2 settings, enable when receiving from and disable when receiving from. Now compare players to target when receiving from. Now for this tutorial, I'm gonna have to use this a lot, and you guys are also gonna have to use this a lot, because it is probably the most crucial setting to have. Because if you don't have a channel for this, a channel set for this specific setting, it will not work, basically. So if, let's say, I wanted to have something, I wanted to count or compare players to target when receiving from, we want to have that set. If we were to have that set to 1, it would compare to this target goal when it is receiving from that channel. Now, increment, decrement, and reset. These 3 settings are not necessarily for the amount of players, but it's the target goal that it changes. So if I were to change, if I want to have, so right now it's at 2 players. If I want to have it later be set to 3, I could change the setting and have it increment to 3 players when receiving from that channel. Same thing with this one. I want to have the amount of players decrease by 1. I would change it by 1, and then reset. Since we are decrementing and incrementing it, this would basically reset it to its original number. Now, transmit for all counted players when receiving from. This one is what, so compare players to target. When this is compared, this channel will be transmitted. So let's say if I reach the goal of 2 players, it would count that, and then once it is counted, this channel would be transmitted. And then when count succeeds, when it reaches 2 players, it will send this channel, and then when it does not reach this amount of players, when it fails, it will transmit. And then when a player is counted, you will have the next setting is when player counted, transmit on. When a player is counted, it will transmit this signal, this channel, every time a player is counted. Same thing with this. Whenever a player is removed from the island or the zone, it will send the signal. Alright, and those are all the settings for the player counter device. Now, a few examples that you can use this in are teleporting. Now, as you guys saw, I have a teleporter rift right here. Now, the way I spawned is I was on team 1. As you can see, team select, I'm on team 1. Now, this setting here, the settings I have changed, compare player count, do not compare. So it will not compare, and it will send anybody to this thing, whether it is reach the max goal or not. It will teleport me. Now I could also have this set to equal to, since I am the only player. If I leave and come back in, it will teleport me. So for this sake though, I'm gonna have it, wait, where'd it go? Oh, there we go. Equal to, I'm gonna have it just set to do not compare. Every time it is transmitted, it will happen. Count to team, I'm having it set to any, so any team can come in here. And then enable on phase, I have it set to none. Where is it? And then use zone, I have it set to just this zone. Now, here are the four channels that I'm using. So I'm enabling it when it is receiving from channel 1. Now this channel is from this trigger. So basically when I pickaxe it or hit it, it will transmit on channel 1. Therefore, enabling this device and also counting the players. Now when players are counted, it will transmit on channel 2. Now the channel 2 is what I have set for. It will teleport here to this teleporter when it receives that channel, and also that fourth channel is when I teleport here, it will disable it. Now the reason being I have that setting on is so that when I teleport, it will disable this device again, meaning I have to trigger it again for it to work. Now I'm going to give you guys an example. So we have our rift here, and as you can see, it does not teleport me because it is not enabled on the game start, and basically it does not work. So now if I trigger this 1 second later, it will teleport me. Now as you guys can see, if I come back here, it will not automatically teleport me. Therefore I have to trigger it again to teleport. Now, a really cool setting you can do with this, is change it so that it is a certain team that gets teleported, or you guys know, a certain class. So if I were to go into this right afterwards, I'm going to have this set to counted team. We're going to have it set to team 2. So now only team 2 can be teleported to the rift. Now what I have is only team 2 can be teleported to this teleporter, and only team 1 can be teleported to this teleporter. Once again, I still have the disable setting on for this rift as well, so that way it will disable and I would have to re-enable it. So let us start the game. So as you guys can see, I'm on team 1. Now if I were to go up here and trigger it, as you can see, it has a player counted, but it is not teleporting me because I'm on team 1, and this only teleports for team 2. Now if I come over here and change my team to team 2, as you guys can see, this teleporter was enabled and this one was disabled. That was just some other settings that have nothing to do with the player counter device. But now if I walk in here, it will teleport me to the teleporter. Once again, since it was disabled, it is not teleporting me now. But if I trigger it, it will then teleport me to this teleporter. Now, the next example is going to be this one, which is when it is equal to and the count fails. So when the count fails, I have it set to where a damage volume enables. Once again, I have a trigger that I have to hit before activating this. So, since after I trigger that, it enables the device and also compares the target. And when the count fails, meaning that it does not reach the goal, or in this case, since I have it set to 0, it has more than the desired count player, then I have it set to where when the count fails, channel 8 transmit the damage volume, which enables it, which is channel 8. Now I have this set to, the other settings are, so obviously it is equal to, that's what I want it to be. You can have it set to not equal to, but that would mean you would have to change it to when the count succeeds, that you would have channel 8 enabled. So equal to, compare get start, no. Counted team, I have this set to any. Once again, enable on phase is none. And I'm using a zone in this case to signify it is only in this one block that you will get eliminated. And I go over to this place. As you can see, it does not kill me right now, but if I trigger this, it turns red. Now if I leave this zone, this purely isn't the device's fault, it's purely the barrier's fault, that if something is already in it when it gets enabled, it doesn't work. So if I go back into it, I die. This would happen over and over again unless it is disabled. So the barrier device, since I have it activated, it will kill me. Now the last and final way that I found this useful is placement points. So if you guys don't know what placement points are, something in Arena where you get points for making a certain placement in a match. Now I have this set to when it is equal to 1 player. So let's say you're the last player alive, 1 player. It would compare the count for the last instigator. Since it is the last player, you want to have it set to the last instigator. Count to team any, count to class any, obviously. Enable on phase none. Now you would want to have this set to always in the case that this is a live thing, because you don't want to have the player, trigger it and such. So if you wanted to use this in an actual game, you would want to have it set to always in this zone. So that way, if one player steps into this zone, they will, get points. But for this case, I'm going to have it set to none. Once again, I'm using just the zone. But in a real life scenario, you would want to have it set to on island. So over the whole island, you would get points. Anybody in the island would get points. And I have it set to enable when receiving from channel 4, which once again is this channel when I trigger it. Once again, compare players to target when receiving from channel 4. Now these two channels, as you have seen, have been the same every single time because I'm activating it and at the same time it is comparing it instantaneously, which is how you would want to have it most of the time if you wanted to activate it. But if you didn't want to activate it and you already wanted to have it activated or enabled, then you would want to have this setting set to always and just this setting set to no channel, but you would still want to have this channel set up. Now when count succeeds, meaning when 1 player is reached, it will send a channel to channel 5, which right now I have it set to granting an item on channel 5. So when channel 5, the channel which is the completion, sends a signal, and I will get a bush in my inventory. And when it is granted to me, channel 6, this is the end game device. It activates the end game device and ends the game. Now, an example. As you can see, I have nothing in my inventory currently, but if I step over here and I trigger this, one player, and as you can see, I get a bush and the round ends. Since I only had one round, it ends the round and basically ends the game. Now, if you had multiple rounds over here, so if I had it set to 2 rounds, it would then start the next round afterward. And you would therefore get the bush. You can also replace this bush with points, meaning that whoever is the last player alive would get an amount of points that only the last player alive would get. So that is the player counter device. If you guys enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you guys enjoyed. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.